Evan tapped a butter knife against his champagne glass while I was still carrying in the roasted potatoes. "To Camille," he said, "and to the first real home of Bellflower Events." His sister smiled at him across the work table I had covered with a linen cloth for Sunday lunch. Their mother, Denise, reached into her handbag. Evan lifted his glass toward the stained glass windows surrounding us. "My engagement gift to Camille is this studio." The platter tilted in my hands. Hot butter ran over my thumb. Denise pushed a deed toward me. "You just need to sign." Camille laughed, then raised the brass key dangling from a cobalt blue glass ring. My ring. I had made it for Evan after our wedding. They kept laughing when I set down the potatoes and read the property description. The first address was 114 Alder Lane, the studio. Directly beneath it was 112 Alder Lane, my house. I looked at Evan. "Did you know both addresses were on this?" His eyes dropped to the paper for one sharp, guilty second. Then he smiled at everyone but me. That second was the first honest answer I got all day. "Technical language," Denise said. She held out a pen with the calm patience of a woman waiting for a slow cashier. "The preparer has to identify the original property, sign where the yellow flag is." There were 3 yellow flags. The potatoes sat between us, steaming. A drop of butter slid off the platter and landed on the quitclaim deed, darkening the paper over the word grantor. Camille leaned forward to rescue it. "Oh my God, careful." I moved the deed out of her reach. Her smile vanished. She was wearing the cream sweater I had helped her choose for her engagement photos. A loose thread hung from one cuff. 6 days earlier, she had called me from the fitting room because Denise said cream washed her out, and she wanted one person to tell her the truth. Now she glanced at the key in her hand, as if I had embarrassed her by noticing it. Evan put down his glass. "Mara, can we not turn this into something ugly?" I looked around my studio. The south wall held the church window I was restoring, a 10-foot panel of saints, vines, and small red birds. Blue painter's tape marked the cracked pieces. My cutting table was under the linen cloth. Camille's purse rested on the stool where I sat most mornings with my coffee. Denise had placed her handbag on a wooden crate labeled fragile. Mouth-blown glass, though there were 4 empty chairs. "Where did she get that key?" I asked. Camille's fingers closed around the blue ring. "I gave it to her," Evan said. "You gave her your house key? It's the studio key. They're on the same ring." He exhaled through his nose. That small sound was familiar. It meant I was being literal while he was trying to be loving. "I had a copy made," he said. "So you gave her a copy. For today." Camille placed the key beside her plate. The glass ring clicked against the china. "I thought you knew." "No, you didn't," Denise said. The room went very still. Denise blinked once, then reached for her water. "I mean, Evan told us this was something you'd discussed." "I told you she'd come around," Evan said. Camille stared at him. "You said she was sentimental about the place, but she agreed it would be better used. I could smell rosemary, hot metal from the soldering bench, and the lemon furniture polish Evan had used that morning. He had polished the studio table. At 7:30, while I made the potatoes, he had taken a rag and polished the surface he planned to give away. I folded the deed along its existing crease. Denise held out her hand. "Please don't damage it." I folded it again and put it in my apron pocket. Evan's chair scraped back. "What are you doing?" "Keeping the document with my name on it." "It's not executed. Then you don't need it." Denise's lips went pale. "That was prepared at our expense. How much did it cost to give away my house?" "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said. "No one is giving away your house." "Then why is my house on the deed?" "It's how the lot is described," Evan said quickly. "The studio has its own address. Once the paperwork goes through, it'll be separated." "What paperwork?" "The subdivision." "You filed for a subdivision?" "I started looking into it." "Before or after you promised the building to your sister?" Camille picked up her key, then set it down again. "Can I say something?" "No," Denise and I said together. For one absurd moment, Camille almost smiled. Under other circumstances, I might have. Evan came around the table. He was still holding his champagne glass, though he had stopped drinking. This is why I wanted everyone here, so we could discuss it like a family. You announced it like a game show prize. That's not fair. I was holding potatoes. You were supposed to sit down. You told me lunch was at 1. It is 1. Is that your defense? My defense? His voice rose and then, because he hated hearing himself angry, dropped until it became softer than mine. Mara, Camille needs a location. We have a location. You use maybe half this space. I turned toward the church window. 3 work lamps burned over it. Boxes of glass filled the shelving from floor to ceiling. A rack of zinc came almost to the rafters. My kiln took up an entire corner and hummed like an old refrigerator. Which half don't I use? You know what I mean. I don't. The courtyard, the front room, all the storage. The storage is storing things. Denise sighed. Must every conversation with you become a deposition? The question was so precisely Denise that it almost steadied me. She loved the language of reasonableness. She used it the way other people used oven mitts to handle anything too hot to touch. Camille rubbed the loose thread on her cuff. I have 12 weddings booked for next year. I know, I said. You know I've been looking for a showroom. I sent you 3 listings. They were too expensive. They were commercial properties. This is a commercial property. No, it's my studio. Her face hardened, and there she was, the Camille who had once returned a birthday cake because the frosting leaned to the left. It could be both. Yes, if I wanted that. Evan set his glass on the table too hard. Champagne jumped over the rim. You always do this. Do what? Make it about permission. I waited. He heard it after he said it. Camille heard it too. Denise looked down and began straightening her napkin across her lap. What should giving away my property be about? I asked. Us, Evan said. It should be about us making a decision for the family. You made it. I made a gesture. With a deed. A deed you haven't signed. Because you thought I would sign it in front of everyone. His jaw moved. He looked toward the door where sunlight broke through the narrow blue panes and scattered across the floor in pieces. Whenever he was cornered, he looked for something practical to do. A faucet to tighten. A plate to clear. A thermostat to adjust. There was nothing within reach except the mess he had made. Denise stood. We should eat before everything gets cold. I laughed once. I didn't mean to. It came out sounding like a cough. Mara, she said, we have celebrated every one of your accomplishments in this room. We've had lunch here. We've supported you. You've had lunch here. She picked up the serving spoon and dropped potatoes onto her plate. There. If you're determined to be offended, I refuse to let it ruin the meal. That was how lunch continued. Denise ate. Evan moved the deed-shaped absence around his plate with his eyes. Camille drank 3 glasses of champagne and spoke about nothing except peonies. I sat beneath the window I had rebuilt after a hailstorm, chewing food that tasted like warm paper. When Denise asked whether there was coffee, I said no. There was. After they left, I found a white bakery box on the stool beside my kiln. Camille had brought the almond cake I liked from the place downtown. On top, in her looping handwriting, she had written, "For the beginning of something beautiful." Evan carried plates into the house while I stripped the tablecloth. Through the windows, I watched Denise and Camille argue beside Camille's car. Denise kept pointing toward the studio. Camille folded both arms and shook her head. Then Denise saw me looking. She smiled and waved. I pulled the blind. Evan returned with a plastic tub for leftovers. Mom thinks you owe Camille an apology. I'm sure she does. She also thinks the preparer can revise the deed. I lifted one end of the cloth. Breadcrumbs rolled into my palm. So she understands it includes the house. She understands you're worried that it might. Do you? He looked tired now, which annoyed me more than his anger had. Evan's exhaustion had a way of making everyone else's pain seem badly timed. I understand it's not what I intended, he said. That isn't what I asked. I didn't read every line. You signed nothing. You just ordered it. I didn't order it. Your mother did? She found someone. Who? A real estate document service. What service? I don't know, Mara. I took the folded deed from my apron and opened it on the bare table. The butter stain had spread into a translucent flower. In the top corner was the name North County Document Solutions and a phone number. Evan reached for the paper. I placed my hand on it. Don't, I said. Something changed in his face. Not shame. Calculation. I had seen that expression when we negotiated for his truck, when a contractor tried to charge us for work he hadn't completed, when Denise's insurance company denied a roof claim. Evan was good at finding the sentence that moved a person from no to maybe. Until that moment, I had thought of it as one of his useful qualities. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat. Okay, he said. You want the whole truth? Yes. The studio came up because Camille was panicking about rent. I said there might be an option here. Mom got excited. You gave Camille a key to let her measure the front room. When? Thursday. I had worked at the church all day Thursday. That night, Evan had made pasta and asked why I seemed distracted. Was she here alone? Mom came with her. I imagined Denise walking between my shelves, evaluating. Camille measuring the courtyard windows, their coats draped over my stools, their hands on cabinet doors. What did they touch? Nothing. What did they move? Nothing. Did they photograph the room? Mara. Did they? He looked toward the blind. I walked to the front room, opened the shallow drawer under my design desk, and found the rolls of lead came stacked backward. Beneath them, the envelopes of pattern paper had been pushed to one side. Someone had measured the drawer. On the wall, pencil marks showed beside the two tall shelving units, 36 inches, 24 inches. The numbers were written in Camille's neat block printing. Evan followed me. Those will erase. I rubbed one mark with my thumb. Gray smeared across the paint. That's what you have to say? I'm trying to tell you no damage was done. They came into my locked studio while I was gone and measured my shelves so they could remove them. For display coolers. I turned. He closed his eyes. There it was again, the answer arriving before he could dress it up. I walked past him, took the blue key ring from the lunch table and held it out. Your key. He didn't move. Give it to me. It's also my house key. I know. You're locking me out of the house now? I'm asking for the copy you gave your sister. She gave it back. That copy. He opened his palm. Camille's key lay there. He must have picked it up while clearing the dishes. The cobalt ring caught the light. I had made 4 of those rings years ago from the first sheet of glass I bought for the studio. A deep blue with ripples trapped inside it. One had cracked in the kiln. One hung on the pull chain over my workbench. One was in the kitchen junk drawer. The last had carried Evan's keys since our first anniversary. I took Camille's copy. Mom has one too, he said. I stared at him. For emergencies. Since when? I don't remember. Try. Last winter, when the pipes froze. The pipes had frozen 14 months earlier. I held out my hand again. He stood there long enough for the kiln to click off behind us. Then he reached into his pocket, removed his own key ring, and worked the studio key loose from the others. He dropped it into my palm. This isn't going to solve anything, he said. No, it's going to lock a door. I called a locksmith before I could talk myself into waiting until Monday. The emergency fee was ridiculous. I paid it. While I waited, Evan went into the house and closed the connecting door. I stayed in the studio checking drawers, shelves, boxes. Nothing seemed missing. That should have comforted me. Instead, every familiar object looked touched by possibility. At 6:15, the locksmith replaced the cylinder. At 6:40, I turned the new key and heard the bolt settle. I slept in the guest room. Just after midnight, unable to rest, I went to the kitchen for water. Evan's laptop was closed on the counter beside a stack of mail. Under it lay the household expense folder, its elastic strap twisted. I opened the folder looking for the locksmith receipts. The first page inside was an invoice from North County Document Solutions. Below the amount was a printed email chain. The preparer had written, "Please confirm Mrs. Ellison understands that both situs addresses fall under the same legal parcel, and the proposed deed conveys all improvements." Evan's reply was one sentence. "She'll sign if her family is there." I read it 3 times, as if one of the words might rearrange itself into something less precise. She'll sign if her family is there. Not my family, his. The people who would watch me refuse, then discuss my refusal until it became a defect in my character. I took the invoice, the email chain, and the household folder into the guest room. I photographed every page and emailed the pictures to myself. Then I sat on the edge of the bed with the papers in my lap until Evan appeared in the doorway. "You went through my laptop?" His hair was flattened on one side. He wore the gray t-shirt I had bought him on a trip to Asheville, back when we could spend 6 hours in a car without using silence as a weapon. It was printed. What was? I held up the email. He leaned against the doorframe. I waited for surprise. He had used surprise well at lunch. Just enough widened eye, just enough pause. Now he didn't bother. "You knew," I said. "I knew there was an issue with the parcel." The issue being my house. The issue being that the addresses aren't separated legally yet. "And you told them I understood. I told them you'd sign." "That's not what they asked." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Can we do this in the morning?" "You arranged an ambush in my studio, and now the hour is inconvenient?" "I didn't arrange an ambush." I read his sentence aloud. His hand dropped. "I meant you wouldn't shut down the conversation if everyone was there." "That isn't what you wrote." It was shorthand. "For coercion, for knowing you." His voice sharpened. "You say no when you're startled. You need time. Then you see where everyone else is coming from." I stared at him. He must have mistaken my silence for an opening, because he stepped into the room. "You agreed we should help Camille," he said. "You said that. I sent her listings. And she can't afford them. So you offered her a building. I offered a solution. You offered her the place where I work. You work at churches half the time. I take windows out of churches, then I bring them to my studio. You know I respect what you do. Do you?" His mouth closed. That question hurt him. I could see it, and part of me hated that I still knew where every blow landed. He sat in the desk chair. "I have spent years defending this business to Mom." "From what?" "You know how she talks. I know how she talks to me. What do you say when I'm not there?" "That you're talented. That the studio is important to you." "Important to me." "It is. My business paid the property taxes last year." "I know." "It paid for your mother's roof deductible." He looked at the carpet. "That was from our account. After I deposited the cathedral payment. It's still our account. But my studio is family property when Camille wants it, and my income is our money when Denise needs it. I have an income. You do. I pay bills. You do." He stood too quickly, knocking the chair into the desk. "Then stop talking like I live off you." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." There it was, underneath the generosity. Not Camille's need, not Denise's pressure. A private tally I hadn't known he was keeping. Before we married, Evan had helped me turn the conservatory into a usable workspace. He'd spent weekends scraping old putty from the windows and hauling ruined benches to the dump. When rain came through the roof, he climbed up with a tarp while I held the ladder. I had never called the studio mine in a way that erased those days, but the deed had always called it mine. "So this was repayment?" I asked. "No." "Compensation?" "No. For helping me fix the roof." "Stop twisting it. I'm trying to understand why you thought you could give it away." He looked toward the hall. "Because nothing in this marriage ever feels like mine." The refrigerator motor kicked on in the kitchen. I could have named his things. The truck, his salary, the workshop cabinets in the basement, the retirement account he had before we met, his side of the closet, his chair, his books, his routines. But he wasn't talking about things. He was talking about authority. My house had allowed him comfort without giving him the feeling he wanted most. That comfort existed because he had provided it. I folded the email chain and placed it on the desk. "You could have told me that," I said. "I just did." "No, you gave away my studio first." He slept on the living room couch. I lay awake listening to the pipes knock in the wall and wondered how many ordinary sounds could turn into evidence once trust was gone. At 8 the next morning, I called North County Document Solutions from the studio. A woman named Janice answered and immediately became cautious when I gave her the file number. "Are you the proposed grantor?" "I'm the person whose signature you needed." She asked me to verify my address. "Which one?" I said. There was a pause. "Either is acceptable." I gave her 112. Janice confirmed that the document had been ordered but not recorded. They had prepared it using the existing legal description supplied by Denise. Both mailing addresses referred to improvements on the same parcel. If I signed the deed as written, I would convey whatever interest I held in the entire described property. "House and studio," I said. "We don't determine the structures included. We prepare documents from provided information." "Did you tell my husband that?" "Our file contains a confirmation email." "I have it." Another pause. "Then you have our response." I expected certainty to feel clean. Instead, I felt embarrassed in front of Janice, who did not know me and had probably heard much worse before breakfast. "Can you send written notice that I declined the transaction?" "We can close the file at the client's request." "I'm not the client?" The order was placed by Denise Ellison. Of course it was. I emailed Janice a statement that I did not consent to any conveyance. She replied that it would be added to the file, careful not to promise that adding it accomplished anything beyond adding it. Then I called the city planning office. A man with a tired voice pulled up the parcel map and explained that a separate postal address did not create a separate legal lot. Dividing it would require a survey, an application, utility review, access review, and possibly a variance, because the conservatory sat too close to the rear boundary. "How long does that take?" "Depends." "On what?" "Whether it can be done." I wrote that down. At 11, I had a video meeting with the project committee for the church window. I positioned the camera so no one could see the remains of Sunday lunch behind me. Reverend Keene asked whether the repaired center panel would be ready for installation Thursday. "Yes," I said. It was not ready. A red bird still needed a wing. 2 pieces of amber border had cracked during removal, and a saint's face was balanced on foam blocks, waiting for me to match a century-old shade of brown that no manufacturer made anymore. "Excellent," he said. "We have the lift until Friday." I smiled into the camera. "Thursday will be fine." After the call, I tied on my apron, turned up the radio, and worked until my shoulders burned. For 4 hours, glass behaved exactly as it should. Score it correctly and it broke along the line. Heat solder and it flowed. Lead bent under pressure but showed you where. There was relief in materials that did not call betrayal a misunderstanding. At 3:30, someone knocked on the new lock. Camille stood outside holding the almond cake. I let her in but did not offer coffee. She set the box on the table and looked at the new cylinder in the door. Fast. The locksmith had an opening. "Evan said you made him give back his key." "He gave me the studio key. He still has a house key." "Mom says that's abusive." "Your mother has a studio key too." Camille winced. Had. She took a brass key from her purse and placed it beside the cake. "Thank you." I didn't know she copied hers. "I didn't know you copied yours." "Evan handed it to me yesterday morning. I didn't go behind your back to a hardware store." "You came here Thursday." "He told me you were at the church because you wanted us to measure without interrupting you." "Did that sound like permission?" "He said you agreed." "Did I ever say it?" Her eyes moved to the pencil marks beside the shelves. "No." I waited. Camille pushed the cake farther onto the table. "I'm sorry about that part." "That part?" "I'm trying to be honest." "So am I." "You've always hated my business." I almost laughed. "I designed your logo. You hated the name. Bellflower Events sounds like a funeral home. It does not. I still designed the logo. You sent me listings in places you knew I couldn't afford. I sent you commercial spaces with loading access and sinks. You could have suggested this place. Why would I? Because it's empty in the front. I looked past her. The front room held 2 shelving units, my design desk, pattern drawers, a photography wall, and crates for finished panels. Camille followed my gaze. Mostly empty. You measured my drawers. For sample books. Your sample books. Do you hear how you sound? Yes, clear. She opened the bakery box. The almond cake was untouched, except for a dent where the lid had pressed into the icing. She cut a narrow slice with the plastic knife tucked inside. Evan wanted to do something generous, she said, with my property. He thinks of it as his, too. That is the problem. She ate 1 bite of cake, standing up. You know what his job is like. He orders equipment for a hospital and then doctors act like it appeared by itself. He makes everything work and nobody sees him. I see him. Do you? The question landed because it was close enough to one I had asked the night before. Camille lowered her voice. Mom always calls you when something goes wrong. The roof, her insurance forms, her kitchen tiles. But when Evan helps, she tells people you handled it. I didn't know that. He would die before telling you. He nearly gave her my house instead. He didn't mean to give her the house. He was warned. I showed her the email. She read it with the plastic fork still in her hand. Her expression changed slowly, not into outrage, but concentration. He told me you'd agreed months ago, she said. I didn't know until the toast. Maybe he thought... The email was sent Friday. Camille put down the page. For a moment, I thought she might apologize without trimming it to fit around herself. Then she folded her arms. I already signed contracts. What contracts? Rentals, refrigeration, 2 assistants starting next month. My website announces the showroom. You announced my address? Just the neighborhood. You need to change it. I need time. You have until Friday to remove any reference to this property. That's 4 days. It's been mine for 11 years. Why are you punishing me for what Evan did? Because you accepted a key from him instead of asking me. She shoved the cake lid closed. Fine. Take the cake. You like it. So do you. She picked up the box. At the door, she stopped beside the cobalt ornament hanging from the light chain. I really thought you'd agreed, she said. I believe you wanted to. She flinched, then left. That evening, I made a list of everything my property was quietly doing for Evan's family. Denise's holiday decorations filled the courtyard closet. Camille stored 24 glass vases in the basement. Evan's cousin used our driveway whenever he flew out of the nearby airport. Every Thanksgiving happened in the studio because Denise's dining table seated 6. I insured the van Camille borrowed for large weddings. I maintained the wholesale account she used for candles and ribbon because my business discount was better than hers. I sent 3 brief emails. The decorations and vases needed to be collected by Friday. The van was no longer available for event work. The wholesale account password had changed. At 8:07, Denise called. At 8:08, she called again. At 8:11, she texted, "This is financial retaliation and you know it." I turned my phone face down. Evan came into the kitchen holding his own phone. "Did you cancel Camille's access to the supplier?" "I canceled her access to my account. She has orders in progress. She can open an account. She won't get your rate." "No." He stared at me as if waiting for the rest. "That's it?" he asked. "That's it." "What happened to you?" I wiped the counter, rinsed the cloth, and hung it over the faucet. "You announced it at lunch," I said. I read it after midnight. On Thursday morning, I loaded the repaired church panels into the van. Evan watched from the porch, but didn't offer to help. I drove away before sunrise. The installation took longer than planned. The lift jammed, an amber border piece shifted, and Reverend Keene discovered the protective grille had been measured wrong. By the time I returned to Alder Lane, the sky was black and my hands shook from hunger. A refrigerated delivery truck was parked in my driveway. The studio door stood open. Inside, under the blue windows, Camille's flower coolers were lined up where my design desk had been. For a few seconds, the flowers made the room look beautiful. White ranunculus crowded silver buckets. Eucalyptus spilled over the rims. Tall boxes of roses stood open under the work lamps, their petals the color of old blush. Then a cooler motor started, low and mechanical, and I saw my design desk shoved against the courtyard doors. A green hose ran from the utility sink to a plastic tank. Water trembled in the line. "Camille!" She stepped out from behind a rack of garment bags. "You're back early." It was after 9. Denise emerged next, carrying a clipboard. "We're almost finished. Get everything out." "We can't," Camille said. "These have to stay refrigerated. Then put them in the truck. The truck is leaving. Tell it to wait." Denise glanced at the driver, who was rolling an empty pallet toward the door. "Don't involve him in a family disagreement. He's standing in my studio. He's doing his job. So was I until you moved my desk." Evan came through the connecting door from the house. He had taken off his tie and rolled his shirt sleeves to the elbows, the costume of a man cleaning up somebody else's emergency. "Let's take this down about 6 levels," he said. I walked to the exterior door. The new lock was gone. A bright brass cylinder sat where the brushed steel one had been. "You changed it back." I restored access. "To a room you promised someone else. To my place of residence." The locksmith changed the studio door. He wouldn't touch the connecting door. "So you found one who would." I showed him my license and utility bills. "Your license says 112, and the studio is attached to the residence. It's 20 feet away, by a covered passage." Denise made a little impatient sound. "This legal theater is exhausting." I turned to the driver. "Who authorized this delivery?" He stopped pushing the pallet. "Bellflower Events. This address belongs to my business. They do not have permission to store anything here." Camille's voice cracked. "You said I had until Friday. To remove references to my property, not move into it. I had nowhere else for this order to go. That didn't make this place yours. I paid $6,000 for those flowers. Then take care of them." The driver looked at his paperwork. "Ma'am, I can reload the unopened boxes, but not the coolers. Those are customer equipment." "Fine," I said. "Reload the boxes." "No," Camille said. I looked at her. She pressed both hands to her head. "This is for the Langford wedding. I lose this wedding, I'm done. I mean it, Mara. I will be done before I start." For one dangerous second, I saw her instead of the invasion. She had purple crescents under her eyes. A streak of green dye crossed her wrist. The cream sweater was gone. She wore an old college t-shirt and sneakers wet at the toes. Then a drop of water struck the floor near my desk. I followed it to a bucket tilted against one of the legs. The papers in the bottom drawer had swollen. Pale brown water seeped through the seam. I pulled the drawer open. My Hawthorne Hotel designs lay in 2 inches of water. "No," I said. No one moved. I lifted the top sheet by both corners. The paper sagged in the middle. Blue pencil lines bled into the wash. The rendering showed the proposed skylight over the hotel lobby, 12 panels based on local wildflowers. I had spent 63 hours on those drawings. Camille rushed over. "The bucket wasn't there when we moved the desk. Don't touch it. We can dry them. Don't touch anything." Evan crouched beside me. "We'll photograph every page and pay to have them reproduced. They're hand-rendered. You have scans. Preliminary scans." "How much time did you lose?" I looked at him. "Is that how the hospital handles a body?" He stood. The driver began quietly rolling his pallet backward. Denise pointed toward the wet drawer. "The bucket leaked. That could have happened at any time. It happened because you put it here. You're insured." I carried the drawings to my cutting table and laid them flat. Water ran down my arms. The paper smelled like leaves and metal. Behind me, the delivery truck's ramp clattered. Camille told the driver to wait. Denise told him not to. Evan said my name twice. I called Reverend Keene. He answered on the fourth ring, sounding half asleep. I told him I needed to leave several tools in the church sacristy overnight because my studio had suffered water damage. He asked whether the installed window was safe. Yes. Are you safe? I watched Evan pick up the leaking bucket and carry it to the sink. Yes, I said. I just need a secure place for equipment. Use whatever room you need. I'll tell the sexton. That simple permission nearly undid me. I called Theo Grant next. He restored stained glass 2 towns over and considered punctuality a moral virtue. When I explained that I needed temporary bench space, he was quiet long enough for me to hear a baseball game in the background. Small bench or Mara-sized bench? He asked. Mara-sized. That's expensive. I know. You can have the North Bay for 2 weeks. After that, I need it for a synagogue job. I'll pay your commercial rate. I was going to charge you more for being difficult. Thank you. I packed my glass cutter, soldering irons, copper foil, grinders, respirators, and the sheets I could move safely. Evan tried to lift a crate of amber glass. Put it down. Mara, you can't carry all this alone. I'm not carrying it with you. He set it down carefully. That hurt too. By midnight, the flowers were still there. I had moved everything essential into the van and locked the remaining cabinets with small padlocks. Denise sat at my lunch table filling out Camille's flower counts as if she were supervising a warehouse. I placed a written notice in front of each of them. No storage, no commercial use, no employees, no deliveries, I said. All Bellflower property out in 10 days. Camille looked up. 2 months. 10 days. I can find something in 2 months. Then spend 10 days finding something temporary. Denise pushed the notice back. Evan has granted Camille a license. She produced a single-type page from her clipboard. Evan's signature appeared at the bottom. I read it. He had given Bellflower Events permission to use the studio for 60 days, describing himself as a lawful resident and authorized household representative. You signed this today? I asked. Evan's face reddened. I signed it to keep her flowers from being left outside. You signed it after I told all of you no. It's temporary. You keep using time as if it changes consent. You can't unilaterally make every decision. This is my business premises. It's part of our home. Yesterday, it was a separate studio you could give away. Tonight, it's part of our home because that gets you through the lock. Denise tapped her clipboard. This is exactly why the property should be regularized. I looked at Evan. Did she write this? That doesn't matter. It matters to me. I signed it. He said it almost proudly. He was done being the person whose contribution nobody saw. He had become visible by overruling me. I folded the page and put it with the deed. I'll have someone review it tomorrow. Denise's mouth tightened. Threatening us with lawyers now? I didn't threaten you. You don't need to. You perform calm and expect everyone else to supply the accusation. Mom, Camille said. No, she is destroying your business to discipline her husband, and we are all pretending this is about a lock. Camille looked at the ruined drawings on the table. We should go. The flowers can't. You can stay with them. Denise stared at her. Camille took the clipboard from her mother's hands. I'll sleep here. Go home. I left before they could make my studio feel like a room I had stormed out of. The lawyer I spoke to the next morning did not give me the clean answer I wanted. She was recommended by my accountant and talked so slowly that I kept wondering whether the call had frozen. The deed had no effect without my signature and proper execution. The license was different. Evan could not grant ownership he did not have, but because he lived at 112 and had historically used the studio, removing him or his invited guests could become entangled with the marriage and occupancy of the home. So I can't lock my husband out of my business? I didn't say that. I said the surrounding facts matter. What do I do? Document the commercial damage. Give written notice. Avoid destroying or withholding anyone's property. and decide whether this is a property disagreement inside a functioning marriage or part of a separation. I stared through Theo's North Bay window at a laundromat parking lot. It's both. Then you need to choose which one you address first. That afternoon, the Hawthorne Hotel manager called. I had emailed photographs of the damaged renderings and promised replacements within a week. He was polite. Polite clients were often more dangerous than angry ones. The ownership group is concerned about stability, he said. The structural designs are intact. They're concerned about operational stability. My studio suffered temporary water damage. We understand. We're going to hold the design payment until we receive the revised set. The payment was 30% of the contract. It covered 3 months of glass orders, Theo's bench, and most of the quarterly taxes due in 2 weeks. How long will the hold last? Until approval. I thanked him, as if he had done me a favor. When I returned to 112, Camille sat alone on the front steps. Her hair was twisted into a knot and there were eucalyptus leaves stuck to her leggings. I moved the coolers to a shared kitchen, she said. The boxes will be gone tomorrow. Thank you. I'm not doing it for you. I know. She handed me her phone. The family group chat was open. I scrolled past Denise's complaints about vendors and a photograph of the almond cake. 3 weeks earlier, Evan had written, Mara hasn't said yes, but she won't embarrass Cam at the lunch. Denise replied, put the deed under her wine glass before she starts asking questions. Farther down, Camille had written, are you sure she knows? Evan answered, she knows this is what family does. I believed him, Camille said. You asked. Once. I gave the phone back. She rubbed her forehead. Mom says the damaged drawings are your fault because you should have stored them higher. That sounds like her. I told her if she says that again, she can find another florist for the engagement dinner. That doesn't fix my drawings. I know. We sat without looking at each other. A plane crossed above the neighborhood, low enough that its shadow slid over the studio roof. Camille picked a eucalyptus leaf from her knee. He really does think you agreed. No? He thinks I should have. Maybe that's the same thing to him. That's worse. She nodded. Evan came home while we were still outside. He stopped at the walkway when he saw us together. Camille stood. I'm taking my things out. His face shifted from relief to suspicion. Did Mom call you? I'm not talking to Mom. This is getting out of control. It was out of control at lunch. He looked at me. Can we talk inside? Camille walked past him without saying goodbye. In the kitchen, Evan placed a folder on the table. Inside were a surveyor's proposal, a subdivision checklist, and a loan estimate. If the studio becomes its own lot, this never happens again, he said. I read the first page. How are you paying for the survey? We refinance the house, fund the split, and build out the studio properly. Camille pays rent. You keep your main work area. You're still giving her my studio. I'm creating an asset for us. The loan estimate used both addresses as collateral. At the bottom was an appointment for the following Tuesday with a lender and surveyor. I want you to come, he said. Hear the options before you decide. I looked at the 2 addresses printed side by side. All right, I said, I'll come. Evan smiled like I had said yes. For the next 5 days, he became the version of himself I had missed most. He brought coffee to Theo's shop before work. He found archival blotting paper for the Hawthorne drawings and left it in my van. He cooked dinner, emptied the dishwasher, and never once said the word studio unless I did first. It would have been easier if he had stayed cruel. Camille removed the last flower box on Friday. The coolers had left pale rectangles in the dust, and the hose had stained the floor green where water dried around crushed leaves. She scrubbed the stain on her hands and knees while I carried the ruined drawings to my car. I can pay you something, she said. The hotel is holding 30% of the contract. Her scrubbing slowed. I can't cover that. I know. The Langford wedding pays next week. I can give you $1,500. The drawings cost more than that. I know. I looked at the back of her head. A strand of hair had escaped her knot and curled against her neck. Send it after the wedding, I said. Not before. She sat back on her heels. Why? Because if the wedding fails, Denise will say I destroyed your business by taking money you needed. She'll say that anyway. Probably. Camille looked at the green water in the bucket. I told her she's not helping with Bellflower anymore. Does she know? She thinks I'm upset. You are. I mean temporarily. I understood. Denise treated every boundary as weather. Wait long enough and it would pass. Camille poured the dirty water into the utility sink. Evan says the subdivision will solve everything. Evan says a lot of things before I agree to them. He told me you agreed to the meeting. I agreed to attend. She gave me a tired, crooked smile. You two really do hear different verbs. I spent the weekend rebuilding the Hawthorne renderings at Theo's North Bay. He worked across the room on a field of red glass and asked no questions until Sunday afternoon when he set a paper bag beside my elbow. Turkey sandwich, he said. You're making the wild roses too neat. I'm using the original measurements. Flowers don't care about measurements. It's a hotel ceiling. Still flowers. He went back to his bench. I loosened the petals. One line at a time, the design stopped looking like a replacement for what had been ruined. It became its own thing, less formal, more open at the center, with blue leaves moving between the borders. The hotel manager approved the new direction Monday morning. The payment remained on hold until the ownership group reviewed the finished set, but his email ended with, "This is stronger than the first version." I printed that sentence and taped it over Theo's bench. He moved it to mine. On Tuesday, Evan wore the navy suit he usually saved for contract presentations. He offered to drive us to the lender's office. "I'll meet you there," I said. His hand tightened around his car keys. "We're going to the same place." I know. The meeting was in a conference room above a bank, with a plastic plant in one corner and photographs of houses no one had ever lived in. A lender named Paula had arranged 4 bottles of water in a straight line. The surveyor, Mr. Baines, spread a parcel map across the table. Denise sat beside Evan. No one had told me she was coming. She wore pearl earrings and held a legal pad on her lap. When I entered, she gave me the composed smile she had used at lunch. "I'm here only as support," she said. "For whom?" Her smile thinned. "The family." I sat across from Evan. Paula began with the refinance. Based on preliminary figures, there was enough equity to pay off the existing balance, cover survey and application costs, and create a renovation fund. The loan would be secured by the full parcel. "Both addresses," I said. She glanced at the estimate. "The parcel has 2 situs addresses, yes. And if the subdivision is denied?" "The loan remains secured by the original parcel. The house and studio." "Yes." Denise clicked her pen. "But the purpose of the loan is to separate them." Mr. Baines adjusted his glasses. "That's the proposed purpose. Approval isn't guaranteed." He pointed to the map. The studio sat behind the house, reached by the covered passage and a narrow strip along the east boundary. To create an independent lot, you need legal access from the street. That strip is likely too narrow under current standards. The rear setback is also deficient. Utilities are shared here, here, and possibly here. "Possibly?" Evan asked. "The records are incomplete. We would need an underground survey." "What about an easement?" Denise said. "An easement could address access depending on planning review. It does not cure the lot width or setback." Evan leaned forward. "You said on the phone that variances are common. They're common applications. That isn't the same as common approvals." Paula turned the loan estimate toward me. "The refinance does not depend on completion of the subdivision. You would close first, then use the funds for the survey and application. So I mortgage 112 and 114 to find out whether I'm allowed to separate 114. That's essentially correct. And if I am allowed." Mr. Baines drew a short line with his finger. Then you still have decisions: shared utilities, easements, parking, fire access. The cleanest arrangement may be to preserve one parcel and document permitted use. A license, Denise said. I looked at her legal pad. She had written license in capital letters and underlined it twice. Evan opened his folder. That's one option. Camille pays market rent for the front room and courtyard. Mara keeps the main work area. I use the front room and courtyard. You could relocate design work to Theo's. Theo rented me a bay for 2 weeks. We could build you a second workroom. Where? There's a light industrial park near the hospital. I looked at him. He kept going, faster now. It would be better for fabrication. Higher ceilings, loading access, more power. You've complained about the studio being cramped. I've complained that your sister's flower coolers were in it. That's what I'm saying. With a dedicated fabrication space, the Alder property could become client-facing. Camille gets the showroom. You get the serious work environment you've needed. Denise nodded. The current arrangement is emotional, not efficient. Paula looked down at her papers. What's emotional about it? I asked. Evan spread both hands. You restored it. It matters to you, I understand that. But we can't let an attachment keep us from using an asset intelligently. The strange thing was that he sounded sincere. He had brought me coffee. He had found blotting paper. He had watched me carry tools out of the studio he still intended to repurpose. In his mind, caring for me and overruling me fit together perfectly. One proved he loved me. The other proved he mattered. I took the folded deed from my bag and placed it on the parcel map. The butter stain had dried into a brown-edged flower over grantor. Did you tell Paula you had already tried to transfer this property? Evan went still. Paula looked at him. No. It was a draft, Denise said. Did you tell Mr. Baines? The surveyor shook his head. I opened the deed to the property description and pointed to the addresses. At family lunch, Evan announced that my studio was his engagement gift to his sister. Denise pushed this toward me. They expected me to sign it in front of everyone. The document would have conveyed the entire parcel. Mara, Evan said quietly. The preparer warned him. Denise capped her pen. This has no bearing on the proposal. It has every bearing on my signature. Paula folded her hands. To be clear, we cannot proceed with a refinance without the titled owner's informed consent. If I don't sign, what happens? There is no loan. And the parcel? Remains as it is. I looked at Evan. Then it remains as it is. His face emptied. You said you'd hear the options. I heard them. You came here knowing you would say no. I came hoping you would describe my work as something other than an emotional obstacle. That's not what I said. It's almost exactly what you said. We can change the plan. No. Denise's chair creaked as she leaned forward. You are prepared to damage your marriage over a building. The building didn't arrange the lunch. You embarrassed Evan in front of professionals. I turned to Paula and Mr. Baines. I'm sorry your time was used for a transaction I had not approved. Mr. Baines rolled up the parcel map. Paula closed the loan folder. Their efficiency was kinder than sympathy. In the parking lot, Evan caught up with me beside my van. You wanted to punish me, he said. I wanted you to tell the truth, before I had to. I was trying to solve it. You were trying to improve the method. He stepped between me and the driver's door. What does that mean? The deed failed because it included the house. So you found a loan that included the house. To separate the properties. To keep the gift. I'm trying to make this fair to everyone. I don't want my property distributed fairly among your family. His eyes flashed. There. That's who you are now. No, that's who I was before lunch. You just hadn't needed to hear it. Denise came out of the building, saw us, and stopped beneath the awning. Evan lowered his voice. What do you want me to do? Move out of the studio completely. No key, no license, no promises, and I want us to separate. The anger left him so quickly that I almost reached for him. "You don't mean that." "I do." "Over one bad decision?" "Which one?" He looked away. "You knew the deed included both addresses," I said. "You thought an audience would make me sign. When I refused, you let them into the studio. When that caused damage, you mortgaged the same two addresses on a different piece of paper." "I didn't mortgage anything, because I didn't sign." Denise crossed the parking lot. "Evan, don't negotiate with her while she's in this state." I looked at him. "Tell her to leave." "Mom, go home." She stopped. It may have been the first time he had ever said those words to her. Her face changed, not dramatically. It simply lost its certainty. She walked to her car without looking at either of us. Evan leaned against the van. "I wanted to give Camille something because Mom always thinks I'm the one who needs help. You know that?" "I do now." "She calls you about the roof. She asks you about contractors. She tells people you rescued us with this house." "I never said that." "I know." "Then why make me pay for it?" He stared at the asphalt. "Because it was here." That answer was awful and honest. I moved around him and opened the van door. "When should I leave?" he asked. "I'm not putting you on the street tonight. We'll make an agreement." "So you've already called someone?" "Yes." He nodded as if my preparation confirmed something cruel about me. Then he stepped back. The next 6 weeks were less clean than the parking lot. Evan apologized on Wednesday and accused me of planning the separation on Thursday. He moved into the guest room, then to Denise's for 3 nights, then came back because she spent breakfast explaining how he should contest the property. He signed a temporary agreement covering expenses and access after my lawyer revised it twice. The studio was excluded from his use. The house remained his residence until he found an apartment. Some evenings we ate across from each other and talked about insurance or the electric bill. Other evenings, he stood in the kitchen doorway and promised therapy, boundaries, anything except accepting that promises were the material he had already ruined. Camille paid $1,500 after the Langford wedding. She rented space in a shared floral kitchen and removed Denise as an authorized contact on her vendor accounts. When Denise threatened to withdraw from planning the engagement dinner, Camille let her. The dinner happened in the back room of a small Italian restaurant. I wasn't invited. Camille sent me a photograph of the centerpieces afterward, then deleted it before I answered. The Hawthorne owners approved the revised skylight. Their payment arrived 2 days before my taxes were due. I paid Theo, ordered the first blue and amber glass, and moved back into my studio after the last flower smell faded. Evan found an apartment near the hospital. On the morning he left, he placed his house key on the kitchen counter. "I'm not asking you to decide now," he said, "but I hope separation isn't the answer you keep forever." "I don't know what the answer is." He looked toward the covered passage. "Do you hate me?" "No." That seemed to hurt him more. After his truck was gone, I carried the key into the studio. In the locked drawer beside the damaged Hawthorne sketches was Camille's copied key on the cobalt glass ring. I removed the brass key and set it with Evan's. The blue ring had a small chip along one edge. I placed it in the kiln with the cracked piece from my first failed batch and fragments left from the Hawthorne leaves. By evening, the glass had softened into a rippled blue rectangle. I painted 3 white numbers onto it and fired it again. The next morning, I mounted the tile beside the studio door .114. Sunlight passed through the blue glass and laid the numbers across my palm. Behind me, the house at 112 was quiet. The 2 addresses still belonged to one property. The key turned once, cleanly in the new lock.